Well, it's wintertime in Northeast Ohio. It's cold outside. All right. So what I've done here is I took my fabrication area and I consolidated it into what used to be what I lived in. Believe it or not, I lived in this as a tiny house, just the way you see it. I mean, not exactly the way you see it. It was cleaned up and furnished. It wasn't being used as a fabrication area. But I used it to live in. And even the missus lived in it a while. I added another building. But what I'm here to talk about today is because it's so cold, I needed a space that's heated. Someplace that I can fabricate my Amicus Smokeless Fire Pits and not be so subject to the weather. After a couple of decades of working in construction and outside, and being exposed to really, really cold temperatures, I got a little bit of nerve damage in my fingertips and toes. So anytime it gets really cold and I'm working in it, it's like it becomes kind of painful. So that's why I'm building this business of Amicus Fire Pits. So without any further ado, I've already shown you some of the tools that I use to fabricate. What I have here are 5 of the support legs. They've been bent already and they're ready so I can continue building. I typically try to build 4 at a time. Save time in production if I can do 4 at a time. This right here is the cutout from the bottom of the drum, and it is used to reinforce what is the top of the drum but becomes the bottom of the fire pit. That is attached. If you look in the other pictures and videos, you'll see that this is attached and it makes it a little bit thicker so it resists burnout. Fabricating these right here. These are the support legs for the upper section, and they get attached to create that gap that's at the bottom. I just wanted to give you guys a little look around my my fabrication area. Over here, I've set up, there's 2 of them that are in process right now, but this is sitting on a dolly. Just a regular 2-wheel hand cart that's laying on its back. And what that does is it allows me to lay the drum on its side. And on its side, I can score a line in 3 places all the way around it to cut out the upper section, the shrunk down middle section that creates the double wall design, and the pan. And then what's left over is what I cut the material out of to make these support legs. These support legs that go on the bottom of the pan, and the angle brackets that hang that center section from this. And this is all part of my patent pending design. What we have over here is a short sheet metal brake. This allows me to make very uniform bends in the leg, so they're all exactly the same height. Various electrical tools, sheet metal shears. Obviously you're going to have a drill. But having this space, it really facilitates me to continue to work through the winter and do it comfortably, and to be able to satisfy the demand for these fire pits. I got a variety of clamping tools that allow me to do this. Here's one that's a specialty one that I have to do. It's a very wide jaw, allows me to attach the legs and clamp them in one position to the bottom of the pan. But let me hang this up here. What I wanted to focus on today is here's one that is built for a co-worker who placed an order. It's ready for him to take ownership of it. This is the upper section. As you can see, it has those signature angled slots. And something else that I've done recently, if you can see right there at the very top where those angle brackets are, how they're attached, that has a very small gap. And that acts as the last line of defense against smoke escaping from this. And to understand what makes a smokeless fire smokeless, it has more than enough air being provided primary midway up over a broad range, and then that very small gap at the top that allows a little bit of air to be pushed out there is the last line of defense. In order to have a smokeless fire, you have to have a fire triangle. It needs to be complete. You gotta have fuel, you gotta have air, and that's taken care of here with this double wall design. And the third component is actually heat. It's gotta be hot enough for that fire to ignite the smoke. Smoke is just fuel. When you see a flame coming off of a log, that's actually smoke being off-gassed under heat. And when that flame has enough temperature there, it flashes, or the smoke flashes, and creates the flame that you see. That temperature is actually 752 degrees. Most of these fire pits typically see 1200 degrees once they're up and running. So it's well above that instantaneous flash point temperature for smoke. So because these contain the fire and kind of keep that heat and keep the wind from sweeping that heat away, it allows you to achieve that high temperature. Now, I've talked about it before. You can put wet or green wood in the fire pit and it still won't smoke. But you have to do it intermittently, because when you drop below that 752 flash point, it's far more likely that you're going to start seeing smoke. So you can put that green wood and some of that wet wood in there, and that'll actually slow down the consumption of wood when you are burning. People say that all these smokeless fire pits really go through the wood, and that's true because of the high temperature. It's like a forge. But you can slow it down a little bit, and what slows it down is the moisture that's in the wood. It's steam. You know, when you boil a pot of water on the stove, it boils at 212 degrees. That's common knowledge. And the reason that it doesn't get really any much higher than 212 is because anything that evaporates takes heat with it. And when steam is leaving that pot, it's removing heat. So when you put in wet wood or green wood, what it's actually doing is it's removing that heat. It's taking it away and reducing the temperature of your fire. So if you've got plenty of air and the fuel's there and you're still seeing smoke, it's because you probably don't have enough heat. You need to build up that temperature by starting with the dry wood. And yes, occasionally add pieces of wet and or green wood, and it should be fine. But play around, experiment. If you start to see smoke, it's because you've gotten the temperature down in that fire pit. It has dropped below the instantaneous flash point of wood and or smoke. And knowing what smoke is pretty important. It's hydrogen, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and methane. Now, 3 of the 4 are combustible. They just lack sufficient heat and air to ignite. Charcoal was made by applying heat to wood and depriving it of oxygen, so it off-gasses all the smoke, and what's left is the shrunken, reduced in size, dried out charcoal, and it still produces heat. You can still grill over charcoal, and that's why charcoal is flameless, or not flameless, smokeless. It is flameless, but it's also smokeless. When you light charcoal, when it starts to burn and you get those glowing embers that you can cook over, it has already off-gassed all of its smoke, and that's why it doesn't produce smoke. So when you're seeing smoke, it's off-gassing, but there's something's missing from the fire triangle. With the Amicus Fire Pit, it's not air. There's plenty of opportunities for air to be present in that fire. What's usually missing, in this case, is heat. You need to have a hot enough fire before you start adding that wet or green wood, which you can do. And typically you want to put that around the outside edges of the inner burn chamber so it's close to where that secondary air is coming in. I'll show you the bottom of the pan here. This is the other portion of the one that's going to a coworker. I got a batch of gray ones, and as you can see there, this particular batch is made in the USA. Used by an American company, filled with product from an American company. And we don't always get these plugs with them. Sometimes the plugs just aren't there. But what we do to cover that hole is we fashion a plate that covers that hole on the bottom. So the only holes in this are the 5 drainage holes that are drilled in between the legs. You can see those holes. That allows the water to escape. And this particular one has 5 legs on the bottom. Now they're bent into this shape right here on a sheet metal brake, all at the same time, so I can maintain uniformity. If you're wondering about the height, that's about 3 inches in height. Vertical height is 3 inches, so that's going to hold it off of your deck 3 inches, and the overall height of this particular fire pit comes in around 15 inches, unless of course you've got the Easy C, which is really pushing the limits. There's other videos on my channel about that in terms of how short you can make a smokeless fire pit and it still be smokeless, because it relies on that convective draft between the 2 walls in order to generate the secondary airflow. But I've got a working model. The people that have bought it and used it say they love it. Burns hot, burns clean, doesn't produce any smoke, and they're really satisfied with it. I've tested a lot of prototypes to come to that design, and that actually works quite well with that shorter profile. If that's what you're interested in, seeing that fire, being able to get a cleaner line of sight. If you're interested more in cooking, then a taller fire is going to produce a stronger updraft, produce more heat, and it's going to go through more wood unless you're throwing the wetter green stuff in. You know, every time I get a drum, I'm sourcing them from local people here in this area off Facebook Marketplace who source their drums from local factories and manufacturers. You know, and we're repurposing these things instead of seeing them get melt down again and being made into more steel that can be then turned into fire pits that are manufactured for new manufacturing facilities. But you see that double wall design right there, that's where the air flows. You know about the signature slots, but something else is Amicus being Latin for friendly. You know, we recycle all of our leftover material. As a matter of fact, most of the material that is left over, like this is a catch bin that's full of scraps and cuttings from getting from a whole drum to a finished fire pit. Most of this I just leave out on the curb, and there's a local person who does that. He picks up scrap metal and he takes it to the scrap yard and he sells it. So when you buy an Amicus fire pit, you are supporting local Facebook sellers that are selling just the drums. You are supporting me, of course, because I'm manufacturing these here in the USA. So you're supporting an American, and you're helping to support someone who is repurposing or recycling that material to generate income for themselves. So when you buy one, that's what you're paying for. But I want to tell you what you're not paying for, okay, when you get an Amicus fire pit. And many of you know I sell these on Etsy, and I'll put a link in the description, as well as on eBay, for $179 in the United States with free shipping, continental U.S. only. Somebody from Greece actually asked me about it, and I was like, man, I don't even know what it would cost to ship something to Greece. But continental U.S. only, $179 with free shipping. You know, and that's what you're getting when you buy an Amicus. When you buy another competitor brand, what you're getting, or what you're paying for rather, isn't just the product and the shipping. You're also paying for an expensive videographer. Now, I'm using my phone for this. I mean, that's as expensive as my videography gets. And you're paying for an expensive sound guy and an editing team or crew or person who polishes up the videos and makes them look really finished, because what they're not just trying to sell you a fire pit, they're trying to sell you an experience. They want to impress upon you all the fun and great times you're going to have sitting around your fire pit. Hopefully you won't remember how much you paid for it, but I can tell you this, from purchasing new cars, it's only new for a little while, and it only has that new car smell for a little while, but the payment lasts anywhere from 5 to 6 or even 7 years, depending on your financing. So you know, this is just a quick look. I'm not going to walk you around and give you close-up views of how all this is set up. I mean, there is proprietary interests that I want to protect as far as how I fabricate these things and put them together, you know, and my methods that get me down to a production speed that allows me to sell these for the $179 with free shipping. So if you have any other questions or comments, go ahead and just drop them in the comment section, and I'll try to respond to them. I get notifications for that. Check out the Facebook group, Amicus Fire Pits on Facebook. And join the group, see what other people have done. Other people have started to post pictures and videos of their Amicus in their backyard. And check out the other stuff on YouTube. And of course, eBay and Etsy, a great way to get yours. If you live locally, you know, and you just want to come pick it up or take a look at it, you know, just reach out to me on the group and find out where you are and see if you're within striking distance. And then maybe you can acquire your fire pit and be able to see it before you actually shell out the money. And because you're getting it locally, you might be able to save a little bit of money on shipping and packaging. You know, throwing something in somebody's truck or truck bed is a lot less costly than boxing it up and sending it down to FedEx to deliver to your house, you know. So I'm open for the comments. I want to hear them. If you have any suggestions, you know, but I hope gives you a good rundown about how I build these, why I build them, and what exactly you're paying for when you buy an Amicus. So so check it out, and I'll be waiting to hear from you. All right. It's starting to lose the light out here, but I got plenty of light here in my new fab shed. Really comfortable in here, loving it for the wintertime. This is Off-Grid Amateur and creator of the Amicus Fire Pits. So looking forward to hearing from you.